Today I want to introduce to you a wonderful book titled If Only I Had a Green Nose. And it's one by Max Lucado. And here again we have the wonderful reading by our elementary school teacher Pam Hayes, who has read this to you. And it tells how much we want to fit in and how people want to fit in. And we need to realize that God created us just the way we are. Beautiful and unique. And so this is a story about how he thinks that if his nose is painted a different color, then he'll fit in better. And so I want you to enjoy her reading this. It's a wonderful, beautiful story. And know that God loves you and created you just the way you are. And so I hope you enjoy this daily devotion. May God bless and keep you. And know that God loves you just the way you are.
So we have a third story in this series, and this one has a different message as well. I love Max Lucado's messages because they just come through loud and clear. And I know as adults we tend to see it a little earlier than children, but the best part about children actually listening to these stories is they can tell you the theme. They can tell you what they're trying to learn from this or what he's trying to teach us. So I think you'll be really, really happy with the lesson on this one. And this one is called, If Only I Had a Green Nose. And again, we see Punchinello. By Max Lucado, of course. And we see Lucia again. Lucia and Punchinello looked out the window of Eli's workshop. Like other Wemmicks, they were wooden people. But unlike the other Wemmicks, they weren't standing in line in the village below. Look at them all, Punchinello explained. I don't understand it, Lucia wondered. Why would anyone want to paint his nose green? Because everyone else is, Eli responded without looking up from the workbench. Punchinello didn't understand. What do you mean, Eli? Well, everyone wants to look like everyone else. Sometimes it's square hats, and sometimes it's tall shoes, and why, last year the big thing was yellow ears. Now, it's green noses. Everyone wants a green nose. Does a green nose make them smarter? Punchinello asked. No. Does a green nose make them stronger? No, Eli exclaimed. Does it make them faster? No. Then what does a green nose make them do? Eli looked up, smiled. Well, it makes them greener. But his smile left as he looked out the window at the long line of Wemmicks. They think they'll be happier if they look like something else or someone else or like everyone else. But I made them different on purpose. Freckles, long noses, bright eyes, dark eyes. That was my idea. But now they all want to look the same. Not me, said Lucia. I'm happy just the way you made me. Me too, said Punchinello. I don't need a green nose to feel special. Then he paused and looked at the village. But I would like to see how a green nose looks up close. Want to go? Eli smiled as the two stood to leave. Just remember, I made you different on purpose, he told them. From street level, the line looked even longer, and the noses looked even greener. Lucia and Punchinello worked their way to the front of the crowd and watched as one Wemmick after another stepped into the nose coloring store and came out painted. It's the latest thing, barked a Wemmick on the sidewalk. Don't be the only Wemmick with a plain nose. Who's that? Asked Punchinello. Lucia shrugged. I don't know. Why, that's Mr. Willie Whippet, volunteered a Wemmick from behind them. Does he run the nose painting store? Asked Punchinello. Oh, more than that, the Wemmick explained. Painted noses were his idea. So were the square hats and the tall shoes and the yellow ears, and new things are his thing. He decides what's with it. Isn't he the best? Lucia and Punchinello took a good look at this tall Wemmick with the deep voice, big smile, tall hat, green bow tie that matched his oh-so-green nose. Both were thinking the same question. Lucia asked it. Who made him the new thing picker? The Wemmick looked puzzled, like he'd never been asked that question. Well, I don't know. He always has been. With his bright eyes. Wait, look. Here comes a new nose. Ooh, said the Wemmicks. Admired some of the others. The just painted Wemmick didn't stop to speak. He just kept his nose right in the air and walked past. All the green-nosed Wemmicks did this. After all, how could your nose be seen if it wasn't up in the air? Walking around high-nosed, however, was pretty risky. Wemmicks walked into walls and doors and each other. Lucia and Punchinello had to be very careful. One Wemmick took up the whole street. Step back! Step back! He announced. It was the mayor. Make way, every Wemmick! My wife is coming for a touch-up. With one hand, he waved all the citizens back, and with the other, he guided her through the crowd. Horrible, just horrible, she cried, covering her nose with both hands. I chipped some paint when I bumped into the tree, and now the real me is showing. Horrible, just horrible. As the crowd passed, Lucia shook her head. Such a fuss over green nose. Yeah, agreed Punchinello. You'll never catch me in the nose coloring store. Aw, Punch, I was hoping you'd go. Punchinello recognized the voice immediately. Twiggy? He turned and looked at the wide-eyed, sweet-smiling Wemmick. His ears began to turn red. They always did when he saw her. He reached up and covered them. Why don't you paint your nose, Punch? I painted mine. Everyone else is painting theirs. Besides, you would look so good in green. Twiggy reached up and touched the tip of his nose. Yours is cute. With that, she turned and walked away. Bye-bye, she waved. Punchinello moved one hand from his ear to his nose. He turned and looked at the reflection in the store window. Lucia had to grab his hand to get his attention. Come on, Punchinello, let's go. As he walked past the store, he noticed with it Willie examining his nose in a handheld mirror. Later at home, he did the same. I never really noticed it before, but my nose kind of looks pale. The next morning, Punchinello walked down the street with his friends, Splint and Woody. Are you really thinking about it? Woody asked. Sort of, Punchinello answered. They say the paint stings your nose, though, Woody volunteered. And it stinks, Splint added. The brush could get into your eyes, Woody continued. And it only comes off with sandpaper, Splint nodded. Shh, 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 shh. Punchinello put a finger up to his lips and pointed at the large crowd of green-nosed Wemmicks standing near the square. Something's going on. The mayor was standing on the platform. His wife, nose freshly painted, and Willie with it were on either side of them. Welcome, 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 one and all, to the first meeting of the Nosy Wemmick Club, he announced. Your glistening green sets you apart as a with-it Wemmick. As if on cue, Wemmicks began stroking their noses. You are classy, you are keen, you are awesome, you are green. Proud of his poetry, the mayor smiled and the Wemmicks applauded. We owe it all to Willie with it, he shouted over the noise. The pioneer of the painted snouts. Everybody applauded even louder. People love me because of you, one shouted. I have more friends because of you, cried another. With a green nose, I'm a better Wemmick, explained a third. The mayor hung a medal around the neck of Willie Whiffet. You have changed the face of Wemmicksville. We salute your brilliance. Without you, we'd all look like... The mayor paused, looking for the right word, and then he saw Punchinello and his friends, pointed in their direction, and declared, them! Everyone else laughed too. Punchinello and his two friends lowered their heads, covered their noses. Let's hear it for Willie Whiffet, shouted the mayor, the Wemmick who discovered the cure for the common nose. As the townspeople shouted and applauded, Woody, Splint, and Punchinello quickly turned and walked away. They didn't stop until they stood in front of the nose coloring shop, and within a matter of minutes, all three were painted and walking down Wemmick Lane. Hi, Punchinello, asked Splint, pushing his nose upward. Am I doing it right? Am I doing it right? Do I have it high enough? Punchinello didn't look. I can't see you, Splint. If I turn my nose, it won't be in the air, so I can't look. Whew, this is tough work, Woody added. Not only do you have to get painted, but you gotta walk around all weird. Yeah, but doesn't it feel great to be with it? Punchinello shouted. And for a few days it did. And they hung out with all the other green noses and made weekly visits to the nose-a-curist or for nose polish. They bought nose gloves for cold days, and they bought nose brellas for rainy days. All three read Willie Whiffet's new book, Winner by a Nose. Most of all, they enjoyed looking down their noses at the unpainted Wemmicks. Now one day when they were feeling especially smug, Splint said to Punchinello, I just can't imagine who would not have a green nose. And Punchinello agreed. Anyone without a green nose is so what? A voice interrupted. It was Lucia. Punchinello was embarrassed. I haven't seen you in a while, Lucia, he said. You haven't seen anyone in a long time, she replied, except yourself. He started to speak, but then just didn't. He was really bothered by what she said, and he was even more bothered by what he saw. He saw it the next morning as the three were walking into Wemmicksville. Standing on the other side of the road was a Wemmick with a red nose. He needs to get with it, they said to each other. But then they saw another Wemmick who also had a red nose, then a third, and then a fourth. And by the time they were in the village, they were surrounded by red-nosed Wemmicks. And those whose noses weren't red were in line to get them painted. Step right up, shouted Willie Whiffet from the steps of the store. Green noses are out, red noses are in. But we just got our noses painted green, they told him. No problem, our red's gonna cover that green. Step right up, everyone, get in style. The three friends looked at each other sadly. We thought we were in style, Woody moaned. What could they do but stand in line and have their noses painted red? Now for a few days they fit in, until one morning they saw a blue-nosed Wemmick. Oh no, they said to each other, not again. So they changed colors again. But it was only for a short time. Blue noses are out, pink noses are in. And then pink was out, yellow was in, and then yellow was out, and orange was in. Soon Punchinello and his buddies had so many layers of paint on their noses that they couldn't remember what they really looked like. This has to be the final color, Just has to be, they said the day they walked out with orange noses. But once again, they were wrong. I'm so tired of this, Woody moaned when he saw a purple painted Wemmick. I wish my nose was just regular, just common again. The three sat on a rock and hung their heads. Me too, agreed Punchinello. I should have listened to Eli. You think he would help us? Why don't you go ask him? All three turned at the sound of that familiar voice. Lucia, they said. He asks about you every single day, she told them. Is he mad? Punchinello wondered. Sad, not mad. Punchinello looked up toward Eli's house on the hill. He told me to tell you guys to come. Lucia spoke again. Can I take my friends? Asked Punchinello. Well, of course. Well, would you go with me, Lucia? Well, certainly. And the four of them began the long walk up the hill to Eli's house. And when they reached the top of the hill, Eli stepped out of the workshop and began walking toward them. He met them in the yard. One by one, he examined their noses. Been trying to fit in, huh? Punchinello nodded. Well, did you succeed? Not really. Every time we got close, someone changed the rules. Oh, that's the way it is, Punchinello. That's the way it is. And my neck hurt from sticking my nose in the air all the time, Woody added. You weren't built to walk with your nose up in the air all the time. You weren't built to walk that way. We just want to be ourselves again, Splint said. Oh, I'm glad to hear that. Can we? They asked. Oh, of course you can. I'll always help you be exactly who you are made to be. Then he reached in his pocket, pulled out a piece of sandpaper, but it's going to take a little time. And so, Punchinello and his friends followed their maker into his workshop, where he spent the rest of the day removing all the paint. It hurt to be sanded, but it was worth it to be normal again. The end.